Thank you for joining us today for the department concept and the proposal plan for our legislative 2027 meeting. This is Ursula DeBerry. My sign name is Ursula, and my background, I have lines in the back, a picture with different words in regards to teamwork. I have a sweater on that is dark blue and a t-shirt on underneath that is light blue. Black glasses on. I'm light-skinned black female, and my hair is up, which is gray, and different colored nails that is yellow and orange. And I'm ready for summer. And I want to talk about Zoom, the etiquette for Zoom. If you plan to test your camera, it would be a good idea to do that now. So if you would like to turn on your camera and test it. If you would like to voice, we have interpreters here that will be able to voice for you. We have two Convo interpreters. Thank you, Convo interpreters, for supporting us today on this platform. We will be going back and forth between the three of us presenting, and you will have an opportunity to ask questions, make comments, and what have you. You will have that opportunity. And if you're not speaking or making any comments, I will ask you to go ahead and turn your camera off and keep them off. And we'll have the two interpreters on to either sign or voice for the speakers. And that way the interpreters will be able to ask for clarification right there. For us deaf people will be able to see the interpreters right then and there and be able to have that clarification, have this open process go ahead and proceed on. Thank you again for joining us. We will be recording this meeting and we'll share this presentation later for those that have missed it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and shut off.
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Diamond Halliburton. I'm the administrative assistant and legislative liaison for the Governor's Office of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. So I am a Black woman. I have black rimmed glasses and my black hair is in a bun and my background is blurred. Um, I am gonna call Tanea Brown back up to introduce herself to you all.
Hi, I am Tanea Brown. Sorry, I lost her. Give me 1 second. Oh, thank you. I'm good. Hi, I am Tanea Brown. I am the Outreach Interpreter Manager here for the Governor's Office for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I am a Black woman. I have a blurred background. I have glasses that are light pink, and I have a green blazer, and my hair is in a bun.
Thank you, Tanea. Okay. Now I'm just going to briefly go over the agenda today. So, welcome again, everyone. Today we are going to be discussing the legislative office plans to propose in the 2027 session. So, we're going to go through the mission, vision, and purpose of our office, what problems and challenges the deaf community is facing, how our office is involved in the legislative session, and um, different things other states are doing, and what you all would like to see from our office. I'm going to turn it back to Tanea.
Hi again. GODHH's goal is representing the Governor's Office in Westmore, and the priority is more Miller management. Next slide, please. The vision for this office is for all of Maryland, for the deaf, deafblind, and for the hard of hearing, for the opportunity of access and inclusion for the resources for everybody's life and the opportunities for your life. The purpose is improvement for communication, access, language, and equity, accessibility for the deaf, deafblind, hard of hearing for the people in Maryland, and for the agencies, the governor's office, healthcare, and healthcare providers, the public programs. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Director Ursula DeBerry.
This is Ursula signing. Thank you, Tanea. And you will notice that every time we take turns, we do mention our name first. And so if we can continue to practice that for the individuals, if they're a deaf or blind person who come into the meeting. So yes, it is my turn. This is Ursula signing. I will pause now as you guys have read this. It's my turn to sign. So this slide is a problem statement. And the reason why we have a problem statement is to establish a clear focus on to prevent any other additional challenges and focus on the project itself and the scope of work that is actually needed. For this problem, it's deaf, blind, and hard of hearing Marylanders. They continue to experience barriers, and we do want to remove those barriers. This is an approach to have government access, to have healthcare, emergency communication, public programs, to have consistent communication access and practice through agencies and state providers. We are concerned as to what we need to do, and we do need to address these. Next slide, please. This slide outlines what the challenges are and what have been noticed, feedback that we've been getting via email, text messages, phone calls, video calls, in-person interactions. We have been informed of these in town hall as well. So the first one, it talks about the delay in receiving qualified interpreters. So that is very concerning. This is something that continues to happen. There's limited availability of certified deaf interpreters when appropriate. Missing communication access plan by public agencies. We do want to see more access more for our deaf, blind, and hard of hearing community, and a continued use of accessible technology. There is limited accountability in regards to data collection, regarding communication and access requests and the outcomes. Based on what they have for the state agencies and departments, there's standard language of English, so we need to see how we can use more of ASL and when it is appropriate. And also pro-tactile interpreting for the deaf and blind. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, and now I will turn it over to Diamond.
Okay, this is Diamond speaking. So now we're going to talk a lot about the legislative session. So just as an overview, I've compiled about 10 bullet points of what actually goes on. So the session begins in January and ends in April for a total of 90 days. And actually, I'm going to give you 10 seconds just to look over the slides so you don't have to um, go back and forth. Okay, so as I said before, this is Diamond still speaking. Um, the session lasts 90 days. So it's usually starts the second week of January and ends the second week of April. So we should have those dates in the fall. So the senators and delegates are the ones who file and introduce bills. So if stakeholders like yourselves are interested in writing a bill, you would connect with a senator or a delegate to help write that bill and have it presented to the committees. The committees are, sorry, the bills are assigned to committees based on the subject matter. That means if it's related to education, it would be submitted to an education committee and they would deliberate on the bill. All hearings are public. Anyone can watch a hearing, whether it's in person or online. And you can also provide testimony if you feel strongly about a bill. And you can do that by testifying virtually, in person, or even just writing a letter on your position. Once the committees have deliberated on bills, they can approve it, amend it, reject it, or hold it. And this is the next slide. I'll give you some time to read it. Okay, so once the committees have um, gotten reports, meaning everyone on the committee has voted on the bill and they've come to a conclusion, then the then the bill is voted by the full chamber. The bill will then move to the next committee. So, for example, if a bill starts in the House of Delegates and it's been voted on by its committee, it will then go to the Senate to be reviewed by that committee. So if the Senate and the House have different versions of the same bill, maybe in the House the bill looked one way, but in the Senate they wanted to make some amendments, they would have to have a committee conference to come to one decision on the bill. So both chambers must approve the same version of the bill for it to pass. The bill will then be sent to the governor, who may sign it into law or veto it, or he could allow it to become a law without a signature, but that depends on the circumstances. So next, these are just photos. So on the left, we have a committee hearing in session. So I believe this photo is from our bill for the renaming of the office to rename it to the Governor's Office of the Deaf, Deafblind, and Hard of Hearing. On the right, we have a bill signing, which is when a bill was signed by the governor. In this case, this was our sign language interpreter membership and licensing law that was passed. Okay, now what is ODHH's process in the legislative session? So we are now in the early stages. So after our bill concept is suggested, we would go into a fully developed concept, which is called a departmental proposal. So that proposal will have a lot more information behind our concepts, which are just ideas. It will have a plan behind the bill. So the departmental proposals are reviewed by the governor's legislative office since we're part of the governor's cabinet. So they will decide if it can be if it can go through the legislative process or not. And a big part of our office when it comes to legislative session is our deputy legislative officer, also known as our DLO. So they manage the legislative affairs and advance the agency's legislative agenda from the Department of Legislative Services. So what that means is because we're part of the governor's office, they want to make sure that our bills or our position on other bills align with the governor's office and his priorities. And I'll give you one moment to read. So during session, our office monitors bills that are related to the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing. So an example of this would be the open caption bill. So that bill was developed by stakeholders instead of by our office. So what that means is we had the option to testify in favor of that bill, which we did do. And although it did not pass this past session, we're hoping to see it again in the 2020 session, and hopefully we can support it once again. And we also keep the community informed about hearings and legislative updates. So if you have not already signed up for our newsletter, that is a good place to find updates on bills that we are in favor of or monitoring. And I'll give you a moment to read. Okay, and like I said before, our office has the opportunity to testify in favor or oppose a bill. Um, Here I have the definitions for the letters, which are quite similar to testifying. We've done letters and testified um, both at once, just in case if we couldn't make it to the testimony, that letter of support would still be attached to the bill. So there are a few options. As I said, you could support it. You could also support it, but also suggest something else to go along with that bill. That would be a letter of support with amendments. You could also do a letter of concern if you are opposed, or sorry, if you are concerned about aspects of a bill. A letter of opposition is also similar to a letter of concern, but it would go against the bill, meaning you don't want the bill to pass. And then a neutral position would be a letter of information just to provide um, context if it seems there hasn't been a conversation on a certain subject in regard to a bill. So organizations and individuals can all testify or write letters, um, and the information to do that is on the MyMGA website, which I've linked on this slide, but I can also, well, someone can put it in the chat, or I can send the PowerPoint to you after the meeting. And I'll just give you one moment here as well. And um, as I've stated before, I'm the legislative liaison for the office in addition to my role as the administrative assistant. That means when the legislative session is happening, I am on the front lines of communicating with sponsors, um, and also helping to write the testimonies for bill hearings. Um, a big part of session for our office is the budget hearing, which usually occurs in early February. So that hearing determines what our budget will be like for the next fiscal year. And we testify on what our budget analyst presents to the committee. And that goes through the House and the Senate. And if you have any further questions on my role, I'm happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. And this was sorry, I'll give you a moment to read. So this list is what has passed in the last legislative session that's relevant to, well, most are relevant to our office, and some are in it not indirectly um, relevant to our office. They're mostly relevant to the deaf community at large. So what I mean by that is things like the State Board of Sign Language Interpreter membership and licensing that directly impact our office, and that did pass in this last legislative session. And then we also have things that are quite indirect, like the Maryland School for the Deaf, their board and membership, they reduced the size of their board. Not quite directly impacts our office, but it is significant to the community. And this can also be found on our website under legislation. I'll give you a moment to read. Okay, so now that we know more about the legislative session, I want to get into the concepts that we have for our 2027 session coming up. So I do want to preface this by saying that these are just ideas and that we are still workshopping and we're still welcoming more concepts as they become not available, but as they come. So we have Deaf Awareness Month, a language service fund, and a deaf blind centered bill focused on support service providers. So I know I mentioned it before, but what is a legislative concept? It is the informal idea behind a departmental bill before the formal proposal. So it's just an idea. I'll give you a moment to read that. Okay, so Deaf Awareness Month. So every year, our office submits a proclamation request to proclaim September as Deaf Awareness Month. Well, we would like to recognize it permanently on a state level, especially since this year marks the 25th anniversary of our office being established. We think to build on that milestone, establishing Deaf Awareness Month permanently would be um, really special. Next, we have our Language Service Fund, and I'll give you 1 second. So in this case, there are language service funds that you can apply for a grant in order to get a stipend for language services. But in this case specifically, I we were wanting one specifically for medical providers, um, medical private practices and nursing home facilities in order to supplement the frustration of getting an interpreter. Um, there are there is a shortage of interpreters in certain areas, but in addition to finding an interpreter, paying for an interpreter seems to be a hurdle for some doctors' offices. And a part of my role as an administrative assistant, I answered the phone, the video phone, and a lot of concerns are related to getting an interpreter for a regular appointment, not an emergency. So we believe a language service fund specifically for medical providers, um, we believe that may offset the frustration in that area. I'll give you a moment to read that as well. And the support service providers. So the vision for the state service providers is to expand the services. We want to revisit the program since it's quite limited at the moment in terms of what the services can be requested for. So we do plan to talk more in detail with the Department of Rehabilitation Services as well as Telecommunication Access of Maryland, TAM. So we do have a meeting coming up to discuss more about how our office can help through legislation, and we're hoping to provide you with more updates on this concept. And I do want to mention the other bills that did not pass last session, but that we are still interested in. This includes the lead K bill. Um, we have been in contact with legislators, and I believe they are starting up the conversation again in July. So we are going to be involved in that conversation to see what we can do to help it pass this next coming session. The open caption bill as well, as I mentioned before, it did not pass last session, but we're hoping to spark that conversation again and see what we can do. Okay. And this is just a list and I'll give you a moment to read after. This is a list of the sponsors and stakeholders that we currently have. So this list is not final in any way. We welcome more stakeholders, we welcome more sponsors. And if you do have any context you'd like to give us in terms of stakeholders and sponsors, we'd be happy to have it. And then I'm going to turn this over to Director DeBerry, I believe.
Thank you, Diamond. This is Ursula signing. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I contacted other states that have an executive director or a director or a coordinator for the Office of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing or Office of the Deaf, Blind, Hard of Hearing. And I did receive some responses, and I'll share two of them that I got the responses from. Virginia is one of them. Please go ahead and read this. The first one, I'd like to go ahead and expand on the language itself. It's outdated, especially with the terminology, which is good for us to know what language they're using. That is something that I have talked to the team here about. Early when we were discussing with sponsors about writing the bill, what type of language that they are using out there. It's very, very important codifying the SSPN, the Deaf Mentorship Program, SSPCN, and to continue on that, not brief it, make it brief depending on the budget. You want to continue it and strengthen that program. And want to reframe the Virginia relay program, the information and the communication and technology. And I want to be more proactive and be involved in that and have that coordination. To get into more details about that, please contact me and I can help you with that. And please, sorry, she froze for me for a second. I didn't see the last sentence. And we have a video that we can post on the website that will include this information about that for Virginia. Thank you. This is just more of information. And so the next slide is New York. I'm going to turn it over to my coworker.
Hi, and this is Tanya. I'll give you a moment to read this over. I know it is a lot of information, so I'll give you a moment for that. And these are two different years. We have the 2025 session as well as the 2026 session. For the 2025 session, There are many accomplishments as far as legislative with budget and policies, including the LEADK, so LEAD-K. That legislative that allowed ASL access, supporting deaf health equity, education technology programs, and supporting special education funding for the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing. And that is throughout the entire New York State. So that was for the 2025 session. For the 2026 legislative session, they have accomplished 6 of the state legislative proposals and focusing more on the strengths or strengthening ASL accessibility as well as early intervention services and LEAD-K implementation, interpreting, having work development groups, technology supports and programs for the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing. And so that is in the New York State, and that is what their proposals look like. Okay, and now turning it over to Diamond, I believe.
Hello, everyone. This is Diamond again. So this is the time for comments and questions. Um, we are happy to hear any feedback you have on the concepts, as well as any concept you may have. Um, so if you'd like to come on camera, now would be the time to do that. Okay, any comments or questions? You could also put it in the chat if you'd like. Okay, so I guess if you have any comments or questions later on, feel free to email our office. I believe I have one more slide. Yes, so our departmental concepts will be due on June 26th. So if you do have concepts for our office that you'd like us to explore, we ask that you please send it before June 26th. That would be the date, the last day for our concepts to be submitted. And then our official departmental memo, depending on how the concepts go over, that will be Friday, August 28th, 2026. So this is the timeline for our before the session behind the scenes. Okay, and just thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Ursula, did you want to say any last words?
I'm here. This is Ursula signing 1, 2, 3. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, and you can stop sharing the screen, please. Yes, thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you, Convo.